Hello, everyone. Hi. Today is our second Facebook Live, and today I'm going to answer any questions you guys have about the class. No one's on yet, so I'll just wait another second, see if anyone pops on here. Okay. So today I'm going to be telling you guys a little bit about me. Okay, so I'm going to tell you my story about how I ended up in this line of work and my own healing story around my own pregnancies and my experience with abdominal separation or diastasis recti and what worked for me and how that influences the class and the things that I teach you guys, and then ultimately how I feel about doing things like belly crunches and things you may have been heard aren't good for you to do. And I'll tell you what I think. And spoiler alert, I do crunches. Okay. So I'll tell you a little bit about myself. My name is Marcy Silverberg, and I'm a physical therapist. And I finished physical therapy school in 2002, and I was in New York. So I'm from Long Island originally. So I did my schooling in New York, and I was young and single, and I wanted to have fun. So I worked for a year in a hospital, and then I did travel physical therapy. So I'm like 26 years old when I started this. I'm 43 now. So I've been a PT now, like next year, it'll actually be 20 years that I've been practicing physical therapy. So I did travel physical therapy. That's like travel nursing. If you've ever heard of that, you could take assignments in different parts of the country and travel around, and the company gets you an apartment. So I went to Boston and I went to Seattle, and then I came out to California. Loved it, stayed here, never went back. And I was really into neurorehabilitation. I actually spent the first half of my career doing neurorehabilitation. So I worked at Kaiser Vallejo, and I was working with people who had brain injuries and strokes. And I always just really loved neurology, and I still do. So during that time, I got pregnant with my son. So I had my son, he's now like 8.5. So it's like 8.5 years ago that I had him. And so my interest in women's health definitely paralleled my own bodies and my own issues that I was having. So when I was pregnant with him, I ended up going to physical therapy when I was pregnant with him because I was just unstable. My body was unstable. I've always been a little unstable. Went to PT. Didn't feel like the PT really kind of went deep with me, what was going on. I had a lot of questions brewing, what was going on with my body at that time. Okay, had my baby. And after that, I developed abdominal separation. So I had heard of this, but I didn't have any training. This is a specific training. So I didn't have any training in how to heal from abdominal separation. I noticed it because I was doing my exercises after I had the baby. I was doing a plank, and like it felt like there was like an alien in my stomach. It was just this big bulge in the middle of my stomach. I had a pretty significant diastasis, maybe about 4 fingers at that time. And I knew something was off. And so again, I went to physical therapy, but guys, I had all these questions about like what was going on with my body, like my PT brain wanted to understand it. And so I didn't feel like I got my questions answered to my satisfaction. So I started studying it at that time. And this is what kind of started me off. I thought, I'm going to heal from this diastasis recti that I had. And I started taking classes, workout classes for the diastasis recti, just learning from different people. And yeah, story goes on. So I left that job and I ended up working, I left neurology completely. I wanted to do something different. And so I took a job at a clinic that I spent the next 7 years at. And now I'm doing outpatient orthopedics. So I'm treating like the whole body, head to toe, backs, necks, everything, getting experience with all of that. And at the same time, I'm recovering from my own diastasis and learning about it. And I end up taking this certification. So I have this certification. It's called Pregnancy and Postpartum Certified Exercise Specialist. That's a mouthful. But during that time, I just learned all about the woman's body and how it changes with pregnancy and postpartum. And I started to that's what I needed to do to really get my questions answered, and started, also I'm applying all this that I learned to my clients. I'm starting to treat women with women's health conditions like leaking and bladder prolapse, diastasis, core weakness, back pain, all that kind of thing, while I'm learning all this stuff at the clinic. and I'm healing from my own diastasis at the same time. And during that time, I have another baby, my daughter. So she's like 5.5 now. So 5.5 years ago, and I've got the diastasis again. I don't know how well I really healed from it the first time, but definitely it came back. So now I'm postpartum again, working in the clinic, keep learning about all this stuff. Okay, so the story with my career ends. Eventually I left that clinic so that I can work for myself. I have my own practice, and it was just a dream of mine, and I love making my own hours and practicing the way I want to practice, and much better balance with working and then also being at home for my kids. So that's the career story. And then the healing story for the diastasis. Let's get into that. So I got to a point with the diastasis that I was about 2 fingers, right? I was like within the range of normal, and it wasn't really getting better than that. I was running, I was doing okay, but I kind of had this feeling like, I think I could do more. And this is where it gets interesting, like, because I did heal from that diastasis. I checked myself just before this call, and I have no diastasis now. So I kept learning new things. There's so much to know about women's health and diastasis recti, and I was just voracious, like reading and courses and all this stuff. Okay, so 3 main things that helped me heal from my diastasis. Actually, I'll give it 4. I'll add another one. One was getting manual work done. Okay, so it's not just about doing exercises, but in some of my trainings, I learned about the manual work that you do to the belly, and I had some tight muscles. Some of my oblique muscles were overcompensating for the muscles I wanted to work. So I learned about that, and I had a lot of manual work done. I got treated. That helped the diastasis for sure. Okay, number 2, my pelvic floor needed to be addressed. So it wasn't just about training the abdominal muscles in the front. You have to look at the whole system. And so again, I'm in my courses. I do realize that this is years ago. I realized that I need to do vaginal work and assess the muscles of the pelvic floor to best serve my clients. So, asked me 20 years ago if I would end up doing vaginal work on women, and I would have never thought that I would do that. But I loved working with women and serving women, and I realized that this is a really important piece. And if I didn't learn this, I wouldn't be really serving people. So I did learn that, and then in the courses, I got my own pelvic floor assessed and realized that I was weak there, and I started working on that piece of it. That made a huge difference in healing my diastasis. Okay, that's point number 3. Okay. Okay, next point. This is a good one. I was not pushing myself hard enough. Okay, so I was avoiding certain exercises like crunches, because in the world of rehab and like looking at stuff at diastasis, there's a lot of messaging that postpartum women should not do certain things, and you should not do crunches, and you should not do planks, and you don't want to make it worse. And I was so scared of making my diastasis worse that I was not challenging myself enough. Okay, and so this really awesome PT that I love, he's actually a man, and he works with women's health, and I love it because he gives like a guy's perspective. And he was like about pushing your body more, and he was like, guys, PTs, we're not pushing our patients hard enough because of our fear of making things worse. You have to load the muscle at 70% in order to affect change. And when he said that, I thought, well, yeah, I already know that, but I wasn't really thinking about it with this. And so I started loading things up more. And I started doing those like Pilates, roll up, roll down exercises. And they were hard. And the first time I did that, I remember that exercise where you're here and you roll down, I had to use my hands and crawl myself up. I wasn't strong enough to do it. And I domed. My tummy actually domed when I did that. And I wasn't scared. I just worked through the doming. It was a controlled dome. It was doing an exercise, meaning I saw my belly kind of bulge out a little bit. And I just kind of carefully worked with it, pushed myself to the 70% capacity. That was huge. Now I can do all those exercises. That really was another really important piece in fixing that diastasis. Okay, that was good. So last thing I did was I started doing an exercise called hypopressives. I don't know if anyone has ever heard of this. Another name of it is low pressure fitness. Okay. So, you know how maybe in the last live, we talked about like what the core actually is, right? So if you look at this picture here, the core is just this canister here. And on the top is your diaphragm. And on the bottom is your pelvic floor muscles. And so in my classes, we do a lot of just breathing, like inhale, diaphragm goes down, pelvic floor muscles go down. Exhale, it all moves up, right? So exhale, it all moves up, right? So what the hypopressive is it kind of builds on that exhale and it creates like a vacuum. It literally creates a vacuum. So what you do is you breathe, and then at the end of your exhale, you kind of take a false inhale. You actually, it's like you're holding your breath for a little bit, and it's like you're sucking through a straw. You let your rib cage open. It creates a vacuum effect. It's as if you were to like pick up your organs and like pull them up into the pelvis. Okay, so this is really, really cool, especially if you think about people that have an issue called pelvic organ prolapse, where the organs actually are a little too far down. It feels as if things are falling out. So the hypopressive breathing is awesome because it can actually affect them and kind of pull them up into the pelvis. It's another way to train your core. And it's another way it trains your pelvic floor muscles. And it's another way for healing if you have diastasis recti. So I started doing the hypopressives. That's number 4. That made a huge difference. And now it's doing a lot better. I continue to learn about it. Okay, so I thought it might be really interesting to show you the hypopressive breath and show you what that looks like, just so you get a sense of like what the heck that is. So I'm going to do that now. I'm going to go down onto the floor, just like so. So let me explain what I'm going to do. I'm going to take 3 deep breaths like we do in class. In, and then I'm going to let all my air come out. You know, we've been practicing getting all your air out. Then I'm going to do it again. In, all the air comes out. Okay, and then on the 3rd one, what I'm going to do is I'm going to let all that air out, and then I'm going to do that false inhalation. So watch my rib cage, and what you'll see is my rib cage here, it's going to kind of flare out, and everything's going to get that kind of sucking up kind of feeling. Okay, here I go. It's hard to talk and do these at the same time, so you know, so I'm going to be doing my best here. Okay, and I want to show you my tummy best I can. Here I go. Okay, so you can see my tummy. Okay, it's my ribs. I breathe in, out, all the air comes out. That's breath 1. Breath 2, in, all the air out. Last one, here I go. In my nose, all the breath out, and then I'm going to do the false exhale. I won't talk through that. So here I go. And then I breathe in. Okay? So hopefully you saw that. It's like this flaring of the ribs. Everything comes up. Helped a lot with that diastasis. All right. Last thing I want to tell you for today is, with all this said about training, should you do crunches if you're postpartum or if you have a diastasis, or should you avoid them forever? Okay, so I believe that we should do crunches because it's just a movement that we all need. Okay, it doesn't make sense to not do them, because I think about this. If someone just has a baby, I usually teach them, you know, when you're pregnant and right after your baby, if you're going to lay down on the ground, usually, like, I always teach, go down on your elbow first and then roll over, because you don't want to strain your belly. And then you roll this way and get out, which makes perfect sense. But at some point, you're going to advance past that, and you're going to start just piking up like this, right? And then going down like this. And that's good, because that's a normal movement. But this is basically a crunch. This is a crunch. So if I never teach people to do this kind of exercise, I realized you're basically doing people a disservice, because women need to know how to do a crunch. Say you take a class, a Pilates class, and they're doing roll-ups. you are going to be doing crunches. So best to learn how to do a crunch. Now that said, I would want every woman to have some kind of like baseline strength before trying it. And then we start slow. We modify that crunch and make it small, right? So if you're starting to do a crunch, and we're talking about this kind of like Pilates roll-up thing, you start either at the bottom doing small crunches, right? Looking at your tummy. We talked about this on another live, making sure that there's good tension. You're challenging this area. Then you could do crunch with a twist, this kind of thing. You could also train your crunch at the top of the range of motion. So you're here at the top of the range of motion, holding. If you need support at the top, you can put a little prop there or something, kind of train the top of the motion, right? Before you start doing the full down and up, you work the range of motion, and then you slowly train yourself into a full-on crunch. So basically, I think it's much more empowering for us and for my clients to have an attitude when it comes to crunches or any exercise that we want to be able to do all of it. We don't want to avoid things. And so we just see how it looks when you do it. Or do you have the strength to do it? And if you don't have the strength to do it, how do we break down that task and make it doable and safe for you as you're building yourself back up? And that is what I think about belly crunches. And I do plan on doing them in the next class. Okay. So if there are no other questions, it doesn't look like there are any other questions at the moment. If there are, you can ask me at the next class, but I'll let you guys chew on that. And I look forward to seeing you at the next class. Okay, bye.